It's been a long time, gamers. We've been in a little bit of a content drought with how dead Cataclysm has been currently. But luckily, that's all about to change because MoP is finally releasing on July 21st. Now, I know what you're thinking to yourselves right now. Isn't Rogue terrible in Miss Pandaria?
My raid leader said they're B tier at the start of the expansion. Hunters are at the top of the meters. Rogues are useless.
Now, listen here. Rogues aren't cope, and I'm going to prove it to you in this video. You see this stupid ranking chart right here? Throw it in the trash. You want to know why this chart is useless? It's because we've got endgame hotfixes, baby. We are buffed. You see, rogues got buffed a lot during Miss Pandaria, and they're now functionally a lot stronger than they were during the original release of Miss, making them actual crankers at the start of this first raid tier. So, let's talk about why rogues are actually good at Miss Pandaria. Firstly, all three specs have some form of viability. Sub and Assassination are very close together in terms of single target. I imagine because of poisons, Assassination maybe pulls ahead slightly in full AoE scenarios, but Sub is top dog once again. The main reason for this is Blizzard buffed the shit out of Eviscerate over this expansion, so it just hits insanely hard now. Combat is the worst of the three in terms of single target DPS by a significant margin. A lot of the reason behind this is Sinister Strike costs 50 energy, and really at the beginning of the expansion, it's pretty rough with energy regen being partially tied to haste rating to pump DPS when half your energy bar is gone in an instant. But where they lack in single target, they obviously always stay king on cleave. Combat absolutely wrecks 2 to 3 to 4 target cleave fights. Which leads me to how rogues perform on beta right now, starting with Stone Guards. I want to give some forewarning on this. I had not played combat up until this beta on MoP and was actively setting up my bars between pulls and learning the rotation. So by the time we had killed this, I had not even slightly optimized even a little bit the DPS of combat cleave. Combat is by no means the best DPS on this fight, and I won't lie to you about that. But what they lack in individual DPS over the Hunter is they have Smoke Bomb. See, the current meta is to stack all 4 Stone Guards and just cleave them down, and pop a ridiculous amount of CDs during that time. One of those CDs that is required is Smoke Bomb. Generally speaking, your average raiding guild will need about 2 rogues to complete this strat at the start of the raid tier, and the DPS check is really tight to only need 1 without raid gear itself. Plus, nobody is beating monks on this fight. They literally just spam 1 ability and win. It's kind of ridiculous. That being said, combat brings sufficient cleave DPS and a vital raid cooldown for this boss, meaning they are essentially vital for any sort of competitive strat on this boss. And I know what you're thinking. Wow, what a snoozer of an opener to the first boss of the raid tier. It's okay, guys. Here's the overall damage of our raid from this last beta. Second highest DPS in the entire raid playing sub and combat, and the only DPS that beat me was 1 hunter and the tanks. Tanks are broken because of vengeance. I don't make the rules. The next 2 fights are fairly tank and spank. We tested all 3 specs on each of these fights. Sub beat out the other specs by a decent chunk, but there is some evidence to support that Assassination might be outright better when the ads spawn during the Shadow phase because of poison damage on Feng. That's fairly minor, but Sub absolutely cranks this boss on single target, and the next one as well. Hunter, obviously, if they capitalize on the cleave opportunity here, should easily beat a Rogan overall, but in terms of single target, it was really close, and I messed up my opener on the pull that we killed this boss on. Alright, now on to Spirit Kings. This boss features a lot of mechanics that rogues really don't have to deal with whatsoever. On top of that, because of rogues having so much amazing utility, we function as the single best stun in the game for the second boss in the form of Kidney Shot. Kidney Shot, with Prey on the Weak talent, increases the boss's damage taken by 10%, and if you play combat, Revealing Strike increases the time the boss is stunned, making it the longest stun in the game, and also provides a damage amp for your entire raid. After Feng, we have Spiritbinder, which for us as melee is about as close to the patchwork fight as you could possibly get. We get to just sit on the boss and burn the boss for the entire fight. Hunters will probably have the downstairs job and get to do a good amount of cleave DPS and also some mechanics, but that will give them a DPS buff when they come back upstairs, and that gives them a lot of favor in terms of mechanics. So for rogues to be doing this much DPS despite having no cleave opportunities as well as no damage buff, rogues are kind of popping off here. Not to mention, 5 million of the Hunter's damage came purely from AoE cleave downstairs, even before the DPS buff that they get after coming back upstairs. Now, I know what you guys are thinking. Rogue isn't number 1 on any of these fights. And you're right, we aren't. And really, we shouldn't be and won't be. I can rogue coat my way through this entire video, but it doesn't really replace the fact that we have been dethroned from the days of Cataclysm legendary daggers. Not that I'm really all that mad about that, because pre-pull and mastery sets made my hairline recede by an inch every single raid week. But this is Miss Pandaria, guys. Gone are the days of just being a DPS class. If you were a class in the game, you serve a function now, whether that be a buff, or a raid CD, or a mechanical job that needs doing. Being the highest DPSing melee and also bringing a vital raid CD is insane, considering rogues have been nothing but an EA bot since Classic WoW, and were only viable as top-cranking DPS with legendaries in hand, and even then, demo locks with 180% meta damage increase made our DPS look like a joke. So before you get in my comment section and say every single comment that was made during my Twitch live stream over the beta this last weekend, Rogue is in a really good spot for an expansion we originally were the bottom of the barrel in, so keep your chin up. You have a raid spot so long as you play the class right, and that's what I'm here for anyways, baby. I'm gonna make you crank. And speaking of cranking, let's get to the cranker fights in which Rogue actually does really well on. Now, I didn't play combat for this, but our other Rogue did, and Kidney Shot alone basically nullifies the second boss's main ability outside of Pillage. Sub cranked on this fight, and as you can see in the screenshot here, the reason for that is there's a lot of moving parts in this fight and a lot of downtime because of movement. Rogues really don't have to worry about this, and with the combination of Nitro Boost, Shadow Step, and Sprint, we get to heavily limit the downtime on the boss and just pump, so it's an easy win for Rogue. Firstly, let's talk about Elegon. This fight favors Rogue because they're a terrible class to swap off single target. Do not tell them about the redirect lift. Your boomer raid leader doesn't know shit. Meaning that most raids will allow you to just sit on the boss and crank outside of the intermission phases. And if any of you guys have played Rogue over the lifespan of Classic, there is no better spot for them to be in besides sitting on the boss and cranking. Rogue is very comfortably blasting Elegon because we get to really stretch out the damage amplifier debuff and lose very little uptime while resetting our stacks because of Shadow Step in combination with things like Sprint and Rocket Boots, really allowing us to just burn the boss the entire fight and crank. Of course, hunters are killing ads and yada yada yada, but I'm never going to not flex us being at the top when I can. Before we get to the last boss, did I mention that this week aura pack on the screen is available to all my Twitch subs? Thanks to Bicarb and, well, mainly Bicarb, but like a little bit of me, we already have a fully functioning Miss Pandaria Rogue week aura pack that will be ready and available on launch. If you guys haven't checked out my streams, please make sure to go drop a follow on my Twitch, as the bulk of my content for Miss will be over there. Now that I work 3 jobs and don't really have as much time for YouTube these days, it's going to be probably the primary modus operandi for how I distribute content from this time going forward. And if you like my content and decide to sub to my stream, well, you get a super sick week aura pack, as well as all my LVUI profiles and everything else that I use. So make sure to go drop a follow and maybe a sub. Smile. All right, finally, the big bad of the first raid in this raid tier. Dance Dance Revolution. I mean Will of the Empire. Rogues have 2 really good roles here. Firstly, they're insanely good at the dance that when you successfully dodge all 10 combos, you just get to outright deal 1 million damage to the boss. I failed this miserably on our kill, but here's the DPS Sheeny did who didn't suck like me. Secondly, rogues have the very unique ability that no other class has access to. Feint. See, Emperor on Heroic has a mechanic where every time an ad dies, it spawns a spark. That spark has to either be killed or soaked by someone in the raid. No class has a spammable damage reduction ability like rogues, meaning they are the only class capable of soaking these ads without an actual cooldown. A lot of raids will do this fight in a plethora of different ways, but the easiest and simplest way is to have 2 healers pocket 2 rogues and just let them go to town on sparks with Feint because it's a no-brainer. Whereas hyper-optimized raids will more than likely use cooldowns for every single one, but even then, rogues are absolutely required for this boss as a part of the soaks, with Cloak being on a 1-minute cooldown. Not only that, but rogues are currently one of, if not the top melee DPS spec, and have access to an insane damage buff because this fight heavily favors range DPS over melee. Meaning, not only are we gaining access to this massive damage modifier, but we also have opportunistic strikes. So, in the event that your guild does find a way to allow rogues to avoid soaking mechanics, they're going to absolutely crush boss DPS on this fight, and by an insane margin, mind you. So, here's my petition to officially say, Rogue isn't cope. I think Rogue is going to scale really well in this raid tier. It's obviously early on and we don't have access to the other raids yet, but I have a feeling it's going to continue to trend upward for Hunter and Rogue in a positive way. I also think that Throne has really great fights for Rogue, and the gear that we get in that raid will carry us fairly hard. But who knows? I could be entirely wrong. If you guys liked the video, please be sure to leave a like, comment, and subscribe. If you dislike the video or think I am a big, stupid, bald, rogue coping idiot, please comment stupid, bald, rogue coping idiot in the comment section anyways. With that being said, I love you guys. Keep your eyes peeled because the moment we have more data and a working sim, I will be posting BIS lists as well as DPS ranking lists regarding where Rogue actually stands in terms of raw output. And before we go, I just wanted to say I missed you guys, and I'm really happy to be making content again, and I'm even more happy there's something new to play. So, until next time, gamers. Peace!